Hello, and welcome to the 22nd gathering of the Adventure Party on the 23rd of August. I'm your party leader, Brad Ludwig. We ask that you peace tie your swords, holster your blasters, and make sure your tokens are properly flipped over when you are gathered at the meeting table. We're taking a break from our convention theme that we've kind of been following this whole month to speak with Matthew McFarland of Growling Door Games. Boy, I almost flubbed the name. That would have been really embarrassing. Uh, and Matthew has had a lot of experience in the world of RPG, and he has picked up the license for the horror game Chill. And to me, Chill, boy, when I first started gaming, it was fantasy based. It was D&D. It was Iron Crown Enterprises Rollmaster or their Space Master. And it wasn't until really White Wolf and Chill that it opened my eyes that it could be something more, that it could be a horror based game, it could be contemporary, it could be basically urban fantasy. And it it's one of those games that unfortunately I only got to play Chill once in the 90s. But I was really excited when I saw that you had gotten the license and that you were putting it on Kickstarter, and you were bringing it back, and that was really exciting to me. And I saw that, I got on board with it, and I really wanted to get you on the show and talk to you about what that took. Taking something that had been in existence before and had Mayfair phased it out, and you brought it back, and what kind of journey a person takes to pick up the pre-existing license of a game that has some history, because by the time Mayfair had it, they were second edition. And now you are going to bring out a third edition and update it and put a new spin on it, but still keep some of the old themes and some of the core things intact, and make something newer and something slightly different, but still is the same old Chill. And that was really fascinating. So we really wanted to have you on the show. So thank you very much for joining us, Matthew McFarland.
Thanks for having me.
Um, Unfortunately, my second in command, Glenn Bittner, is not here. I'm not sure where he's at right now, but we're going to just kind of continue on. We're going to shorten things up a little bit here, and we're going to go right into the news and talk about something that's very interesting. Paizo, who they're Pathfinder. To me, they're mostly Pathfinder, but they have some other properties as well. Voting is happening now for the opening round of Paizo's RPG Superstar Season 9. And this story comes to us from Tabletop Gaming News. Paizo is looking for the next RPG superstar, and they need your help to find them. Voting has begun on the 9th season of the RPG Superstar search over at the Paizo website. Contributors from all over the world are vying to be the best. They've made their submissions, and now you get to vote on who you think should move on to the next round. This first round had creators making a magic weapon, magic armor, and wondrous items. And we'll have a link in the show notes where you can check out voting and get some more details on this. Taking a reality sort of approach to RPG, I could see how maybe it would be a way to. Who do you think that I'm going to ask you this, Matthew? Who do you think that they are really pitching to here? The person who maybe has never gamed before but is interested in reality type programming, or what are your thoughts?
So I wasn't actually familiar with this until you started talking about it, and then I kind of quickly Googled it. So I don't play D&D. I don't play a lot of Pathfinder. So
okay.
I don't. It's not really something I pay attention to. It was funny you were talking about starting with fantasy and then moving into horror.
Mm-hmm.
I started with superhero games and then moved into horror.
Okay.
Kind of skipped fantasy entirely.
Sure.
So D&D is most people's first game, but I've just kind of played it off and on, but I've never really gotten into it. But I'm looking at the rules now for the RPG Superstar, and it looks like what you're doing is it finalists gain opportunity for a paid commission to write a 16-page adventure. So it almost looks like they're looking for writers.
Okay.
And if that's what they're doing, and I want to say really kind of emphatically if that's what they're doing, because I certainly haven't had a chance to really read through this. The contest method of looking for talent is not my favorite thing in the world, because to me it's a job. It should be a job.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of companies trying to treat their writers professionally. And there's this industry, unfortunately, because of the profit margins that we work on, which are really slim. Writers don't get paid much, artists don't get paid much, and so I think that overall it's improving. But if some of the companies out there still use very, I hesitate to use the word exploitative because that's harsh, but if the shoe fits, methods of paying and dealing with their creatives. And I have seen contest models that leave writers really sort of high and dry with very little to show for their work, and with nothing in the way of rights to what they sent in. Now, I don't know if that's the case here. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to look over it, but if you're thinking about submitting to any kind of contest model, that's something to be aware of. Just make sure you read the fine print and understand what you're giving them when you give them your submission.
Sure. Yeah, it really, looking at the FAQ, it is very much about writing a campaign. And there in the FAQ, it looks like it's all about, a lot of the questions are, if I'm going to do this, what can I and can I not use in creating a campaign? So yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. That is what it's all about. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can see where you'd want to try to, foster or try to find new talent out there. Because I'm going to make a general assumption that it's not easy to become a writer for in the gaming industry, and you would most certainly know better than others.
So like Onyx Path Publishing, which of course they do the World of Darkness now.
Yep.
We have. I don't work for them full time, but I do a lot of freelancing for them, both as a writer and as a developer. And we have submission guidelines up on the site. And so, when you submit to Onyx Path, you send in your submission, but you also send in a submission non-disclosure agreement, basically saying that we're going to look at what you submit. We're not promising to publish it. We're not going to pay you for it. We're just going to take it as a submission. And we're also not going to, take it from you and publish it without attribution or without compensation. That's one way to do it. I haven't run an all-call or a writer's submission for Growling Door yet because I haven't needed to.
Sure.
We've only published 4 books now, and the only one that we've really hired a lot of freelancers for was Chill, and I recruited very heavily from people that I knew from Onyx Path, because one of the nice things about being developer for them is that I have lots of really talented people that I can poach when I need to.
Sure.
But if the day comes that we need to recruit more writing talent, that's pretty much how we're going to do it. We're going to say, give us a submission. This is not a promise of work. This is just an audition, effectively, and kind of go from there. But I think that if you're holding a contest to find creatives, you're sending the wrong message, because the message that you're sending is, come work for us. It's a privilege. You won something by working for us. And what you should be saying is, show us how awesome you are so that we can give you a job and give you money to do this work for us.
No, absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. Because you definitely want the best of the best, and you also want, I would guess, especially if you're pulling people from Onyx Path, and the work that they've been doing there. I really enjoy the update to Hunters Hunted. I've really enjoyed that.
I worked on that.
What's that?
I said I wrote for that, as a matter of fact.
Excellent. I'm a huge fan of that setting, playing a human in the vampire and in the monster world, and And that's very much a theme in Chill, which we'll definitely get to. So, and that's one of the things that I think that Chill opened up my eyes as to that being a possibility for Vampire, and then they came out with the Hunters Hunted, and that blew me away. So, sorry, I digressed there a little bit. Yeah, you definitely want to get the best of the best, and you have that capability, especially with you owning your own company and working for Onyx Path. You know that there are tried and true people that are out there that you've worked with, and you appreciate their work, and they're willing to come on board and add stuff to your world, which is really cool. And yeah, an open cattle call like that might work for Idle, but I'm not sure that it would be the best thing for an RPG. Glenn, what are your thoughts? I just saw that you snuck in on here. Glenn Bittner is back with us here. So, hi, Glenn.
Oh, sorry I'm late.
No worries. So we're talking about Paizo doing an open call for basically an American Idol, their RPG Superstar, their 9th season of it, and they're looking to have people come up with ideas and see what they have, and they could possibly work for Paizo.
Sounds nifty.
Now, Glenn, you also have the experience of creating Mistrunner, the RPG Mistrunner. Would you? We've gotten Matthew's perspective of that. Would you do something like that for Mistrunner to come up with different source books or other materials for Mistrunner?
If I had a following of people who would be interested, sure, I could see doing something like that.
Okay.
I think it's a nifty little idea, and I think it probably gets some people who would have never thought to contribute something, because you might find someone who just needs that little push, and this might be a push that they'd be comfortable taking, as opposed to just doing like a blind type of submission type thing.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I could see that perspective. I'm kind of wondering though, do you want somebody who's bold and fearless and willing to just, submit something and say, hey, I really like your stuff. I would like to be a part of this. Here's something that I have that please look at and let me know if I could work for you. And there's definitely something to be said for having that level of confidence as opposed to sneaking in through the back door, which is what this kind of feels like a little.
Well, I mean, yeah, you want people like that, but you also have to understand the pool that you're drawing from is a very introverted pool. So I think knowing that there are a lot of people out there who, they just, well, for a variety of reasons, just haven't made a submission or just aren't comfortable doing it. But you never know. I mean, you might find someone who works out. You might not. I mean, there's not a ton of. I mean, this is not like costing them like millions of dollars to do. So, and they're going to get to see lots of cool things that come out of it.
Sure. Okay. All right. Both are very valid points of views, and I'd like to keep an eye on this to see what comes of this and how. I would really like to see how winners from seasons 1 through 8 have fared and what they've actually produced for Paizo and how well it was received, just to see. There's one thing to do something like this to build buzz, because it's really about marketing. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you're doing a contest to get a bunch of people in to try something and see your product and whatever. But I don't know. There's good and bad here, and it'd be interesting to see how the previous winners have fared. So
I'd be interested in that too.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the problems that you run into with hiring writers in RPGs is that the people who submit tend to be fans, and that's not a bad thing in and of itself. But the problem is that if you submit as a fan, and your primary motivation for doing the work is, I really love this world and I want to be part of it, then there does come the danger of, when you get your first set of red lines back, and some developer or some editor has taken what you've written and torn it to shreds, because that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Going, I can't do this. I didn't know it was going to be work. And I've lost writers over the years, because no one has ever actually come out and said, I didn't think this was going to be work, obviously, but I've certainly run across writers who are perhaps better suited to do fan work, and are not, for whatever reason, can't quite get their minds around how writing something for publication differs from writing it for fun.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So, in your experience then, was it the whole editing process? Was it the whole meeting the deadline of getting those red lines back and going, okay, I need to rework this and then hand it back in? I have seen a number of different kind of unpleasant realities of the profession, or of the job, trip people up. One of them is writing to deadlines. Some people can sit down and take an outline and crank out 1,000 words a day and hit their deadlines, and some people just whack their heads against the keyboard and just can't summon it when they need to. And some of that comes with practice. Writing is something that you get better at the more you do it. So I always tell writers, and everybody that that does this professionally will pretty much say the same thing. If you want to be a writer, write. Yeah.
Do it every day, even if you can't do much. Do 500 words a day, do 100 words a day, whatever you can manage. At least you'll stay in shape, as it were.
Sure.
And then as far as writing for games too, I've worked with people who are really good at kind of doing setting work or doing fiction, but when you ask them to do mechanics, they don't quite have their head around that part.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I could see that.
And that's more important for some games than others. And then I've met people too that don't quite realize that if you're going to do this consistently, it's basically taking on a second job.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I've been doing this since 1997, and this past year just killed me, because I was doing 3 core books at the same time, and I got done with a couple of months of doing that, and my wife was like, "You are never doing this again." I'm like, "I am never doing this again." Yes, sign that in blood. I am never doing this again. I am not ever taking on this level of work, because it really, it was too much. It was too much. It was like working, because I work a full-time job as well.
Sure.
And it was like, I never. And part of the issue was too that much of my day job involves sitting at a computer, and then I would come home and be like, and now I've got to write, or now I've got to edit, and I'm like, no, I need to get up, go outside, throw sticks for my dogs. So.
Yeah, it takes a special type of person, or maybe not so much. I don't want to make it magical, because you're right. It is a job. It is something that you have to have that level of focus, that level of passion, and that level of professionalism, where you are like, okay, I am now putting on this hat, and I'm doing this thing from this time to this time, and this is what I do. And sometimes it's a grind, and we talked with fantasy writer Patrick Rothfuss, and he kind of said the same thing, that it's a job, and you need to take it seriously, or you're not going to get anywhere.
You need to be aware of what you can do too.
Yeah.
Part of the problem that I had when I went back to grad school, because I had been a full-time freelancer for a couple of years, and then I went to grad school, and I was like, oh, I can still write 30,000 words a month, no problem. No. So I had to kind of trim back the writing that I was doing. Same thing after my daughter was born. I'm like, I couldn't meet the same level of productivity.
Sure.
And it took a while to kind of readjust to that. So that's another kind of big part of it. Be aware of what you can do, how much you can do in a given amount of time, and don't overbook yourself. And
Yeah.
I mean, that unfortunately is the kind of lesson that you tend to learn the hard way. But you know, you do have to learn it.
Yeah, no, I could see that being a very hard lesson to learn, especially if you're the kind of person who dreams big and overpromises and underdelivers, which you want to reverse that. You want to promise and overdeliver. And that can be a very rough lesson to learn and might cost you some jobs, unfortunately, if you don't pick that lesson up quicker rather than later. So. All right, I think we're switching things up here now that we've got Glenn back. We're gonna go back and we're gonna do our game review. And Glenn, you've got a game here called Ashes: Rise of the Phoenixborn. What's this all about?
Yes. Well, this one's brought to us by Plaid Hat Games. They're the lovely folks who also brought us Dead of Winter, and this game is by Isaac Vega, who was one of the main writers on Dead of Winter as well. This game, so it's a 2 to 4 players. It's an expandable card game where the players take on roles of the different Phoenixborn. They're kind of like demi-gods / protectors of the world. Just basically these all-around powerful people. So you're the great saviors of civilization. And you're basically just going to be battling against each other, because I guess that's what great saviors do, is they fight each other. And you're doing that by summoning various creatures to your aid and casting spells. So in a way, it's got a bit of a Magic the Gathering feel, but you have dice. So it's one of the things I love about this is I get to play with dice and I get to play with cards, which are 2 of my favorite things. And first of all, I have to say the art is absolutely gorgeous. It's high quality. It's what I've come to expect from Plaid Hat Games. They do a really good job putting a lot of work into the components of their games. The way the game plays is, so as I said, you take control of a Phoenixborn and you have a 30 card deck of spells and units. Plus you get 10 dice. You have 2 sets of 5 that correspond basically your different. It's basically these are what you're going to roll each turn to determine what you can do with your spells, because you're going to have different symbols on the dice which will basically do different things. There's one specific one so you have the best one on each die type, which you can use to do anything you want. And then each step down, you can do a bit less. So like the highest one, you can do anything you do at that level, plus at the 2 levels below it, where if you have the lowest one, all you can do is those lowest level spells and abilities. So each turn you roll your dice, and then you go back and forth between players taking turns. You have your main action, and you have a side action if you want to do it. A turn ends when both players have passed on the turn. You can pass, and if your opponent does something, you can then go again. As long as you both haven't passed, the turn keeps going. And you keep playing, basically trying to knock your opponent down to 0 life. I've played it a couple times now. The first time I played, I got absolutely owned. The deck I was playing just did not pair well against the person I was playing against, and that's playing a lot of minis games. That's a key thing in miniatures, is that you may have someone that goes really well against someone else and then is really weak against something, and that's kind of the way you break it down, where everything is in perfect balance, where everything is perfectly balanced with every other thing, because then nothing really seems special. At least in my opinion, nothing really seems special if every single one of these Phoenixborn, if they were all perfectly evenly matched, God, that's going to be a mechanical nightmare to figure out.
Sure.
To balance every single card like that. But also it doesn't make anything feel special, where it's like I'm not really great at something, and it's great to know that, okay, this person is weak to this, and this game, like Magic, even though it's not collectible like Magic where you're chasing random cards, you can customize your deck, so you don't have to play with what your base deck is. You can switch cards in and out, and you can change things a bit, so that way you can change from your basic, this Phoenixborn comes with these 2 decks. Well, I don't want to play with those 2. I'm going to play with one of the ones, and then this one over here too. So I can have tougher creatures if I want, or I can have better spells that let me do different things. But they've just come up with a really cool mechanic in general of using the dice in conjunction with the cards. Because you don't have, like in Magic where you have mana, you tap mana to your spells. This one, you have spells that cost nothing to put a spell on the battlefield. if you have what's called a ready spell. These are ones that just sit out there. Then you assign dice to them to do their abilities, which is usually a lot of times summoning creatures, or perhaps one of the ones I played was it let me change the value of my dice. So I would exhaust it. You basically exhaust something, so you only use it once per turn. You exhaust it, and it lets me change two face values of my dice, which can be really handy when you roll really poorly. So there's a lot of ways you can manipulate the dice as well, other than just simply, if you roll bad, you roll bad. That kind of sucks in games. And this one gives you some control over that as well, because pretty much of the ones I've played or played against, everyone had some degree of ability to manipulate their dice, so that you weren't completely hamstrung by a bad die roll. So.
Sure. Okay. And for those of you who are checking us out on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio-only version of this, if you go to the Galactic Netcast's YouTube page and look for this episode in the playlist for Adventure Party, you can take a look at some of the images that we're flashing through here with the dice, the cards, and some of the layout of how the cards look and gameplay. So it seems interesting, but I kind of have some reservations. And if you can alter your cards and whatnot, I mean, you could kind of cheat. I mean, if you have 2 decks in the box, if I'm understanding this right, if you got decks in the box, you could have a really good deck for yourself, and then give your opponent or opponents really kind of crappy decks.
Well, sure, but I mean, there's a lot of games that you can do that. If you're a dick that doesn't care about, that only cares about winning and isn't. I mean, in a role-playing game, if I'm a dungeon master, I can just simply say, "Oh, look, I got another crit hit with the goblin. Now your fighter's dead, and the thief is about to die too." I mean, there's lots of ways you can cheat in games. So I'm not going to hold that against the game, because there's an ability to cheat in it.
Say it again for the people in the back.
No, true enough. I think that we've spoken a lot in the past about, we're not the type of gamers that just want to win. But there are power gamers out there and alpha gamers that do, and it's always sad when you come up against them and then you don't have fun. And that's really what this is all about.
So, where I said I got owned the first time I played, it was when I learned to play the game. The guy I was playing against, who I played lots of games with, he had never played against or with the Phoenixborn that I had used. She was actually still sealed in her plastic wrap.
Oh, okay, sure.
So, just the fact that the one that he picked just happened to go really, really well against mine, where I just wasn't a good match for her. But then, and initially it soured me on the game. But then I started looking at some of the other Phoenixborn, and I'm like, oh, well, this guy could totally trounce the one you were running, because he can summon these gigantic rhinos that will just trample over everything. So
sure,
there's definitely balance that they have come up in the game where you have different Phoenixborn that are just, they pair up really well against other ones, and then they do poorly, less good against others. And it really comes down to, there's a lot of strategy you can do, because I'm not saying I couldn't have beaten him with the deck I had. It's just that on a just brute force level, I was at a disadvantage. Because in this game, you start with, so I said you have a 30-card deck. If you ever, at the start of a turn, you have to draw cards. If at any point you can't draw cards, you take damage for every card you couldn't draw. And the one he was playing, her ability was she just kept making you draw cards.
Yeah.
And discarding cards from your deck, which I didn't have the muscle in my creatures strong enough to kill him faster than he could kill me with the decks. If I knowing the game a little bit better, I think I may have had a better chance, but I still think that one has a definite advantage for who I was playing.
Sure.
But then I played it another time, and I played against that same one I'd gone against, and I used the guy with the big rhinos, and I wrecked face.
Sure.
What are you going to do? It's like, oh, that's cute. You got your little dude there with his little harp thing. That's great. My rhino's just going to tromp all over you, and you're dead.
What does this game run for suggested retail? Do you?
I don't know entirely because so this was at Gen Con.
Okay.
If you did not buy it at Gen Con, you currently won't get it.
Okay.
I believe it's going to retail for probably about $60. That's pretty typical for most of Plaid Hat's bigger games.
Okay.
And for what you get in the box, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
You get a ton of dice. You get, I think it's 6 or 8 different Phoenixborn that come with it, each with their own 30-card deck. So.
Oh, yeah.
And that 30 cards, that does not include creatures you can summon. Because you have some creatures that are in your hand you cast. Other ones, like the one I was playing, she had 3 different creatures she could summon. And those are actually separate cards from the 30 that are in your deck.
Okay.
They're just these side cards that you basically have, and I could summon X number of each one. Plus you have limitations on what you can have. You have, and I'm really blanking on the stats, what they're called, but you have one that basically shows how many creatures you can have in play at any one time. And you have another one that is how many spells you can have in play at one time.
Sure. Okay.
But then same spells can stack on top of each other, so they don't count against your limit. So if your limit is 4, and you've got 4 different spells out, you can cast one of those same spells again, because it'll stack on top of the ones you have.
Okay. Very interesting. So, once again, you never recommend anything that you don't like or you wouldn't play again. So,
yeah, and as soon as this is supposed to be coming out this fall.
Okay.
Hopefully, Plaid Hat was actually just acquired by Z-Man Games, who you've played Pandemic.
Yes. Yeah.
Z-Man makes Pandemic now.
Gotcha.
I like the games that Z-Man puts out. However, they have for years had issues with distribution.
Oh,
so
okay.
When they say something is available, it's not always when it's available, and odds are, when it does become available, there won't be enough of it. So if this game appeals to you in any way, and you can find it, grab it while you can.
Yeah, buy it immediately.
Z-Man has a habit, and I don't know how much control Plaid Hat still has. I don't know all the specifics yet. I mean, Plaid Hat may just be still operating completely as Plaid Hat, just under the Z-Man banner. Sure. I don't know. But snag it up when you can, because I've gone through Christmas seasons where Pandemic, which is one of our best-selling games at the store, oh yeah, it's not available. They didn't print enough, and no one has it anywhere. So sorry, you can't have the game you wanted for Christmas.
Yeah.
I can recommend other ones that aren't dealing with disease. Oh, okay. All right, see ya. Thanks. Come back and buy it online, but it's $150 and it's a $40 game. Sorry.
Yeah, that's always rough. You have to, if you want something really bad, it's not available at your local store, and then you try to get it through eBay or something else. Yeah, you pay through the nose. Absolutely. All right. Well, next up, we have kind of switched the order around, but we're going to get back on track here, and Ryan Murphy is going to be the guy to do it. He's our regular contributor with the Galactic Gaming News, and he covers more of the digital beat of gaming, and he has another update for us. So take it away, Ryan. All right, thanks for that report, Ryan. Really appreciate it. Next up, we're going to talk about the Kickstarter Spotlight, and we're going to do a recap of last week's game, which was the Lobotomy board game, and you brought that to the table for us, Glenn, so remind us.
Lobotomy. Board game where you have to escape from a mental asylum, and there are many monsters, or are they, that stand in your way. It's a 1 to 6 player cooperative game, cooperative horror, and it just looks so cool. The minis look so cool. I mean, I want this just based on the miniatures alone. Yes. And then you throw in the fact that it looks like a really cool game too. I'm like, I am so sold on this. They have 7 days left to go.
Yep.
They were trying to get $40,000, and I don't know if they're going to hit it, being at only $235,000 with 1,700 backers. So they've definitely hit their goal. They've unlocked some more stretch goals since we talked last week. Because now you get cool. You get a new character comes in the little one in the wheelchair. They unlocked the Dale Walker, which is basically Blade.
Yep.
And that was the cool thing, is that all the characters, if you look at the names and you can figure out where they got their inspiration from.
Yep.
So it's just a really cool game, and it's the type of game I like. I like games where I have the more things I can have. If I can have cards and dice and minis in a game, I am in heaven. As long as there's not too many dice.
Just such an amazing, yeah, like you said, the miniatures for this are just ridiculously detailed and are absolutely gorgeous. And wait, 235, they've got a new scenario which has a miniature for H.P. Lovecraft. So they must have hit it over the weekend and they weren't watching it. So boy, if you're an H.P. Lovecraft fan and you've always wanted an H.P. Lovecraft miniature, this is a game for you.
Yep.
A lot of, I mean, they have an expansion here which is From the Deep, which is the Deep Ones. It definitely Cthulhu based. Gosh, like you said, there's so many different touchstones. There's Sucker Punch. There's a character from the movie Sucker Punch. There's a character from Jack Nicklaus's character from The Shining is in there, and just every memorable horror type character that you can imagine shows up in some fashion in this game. Damien from The Omen, and on and on. Just
Ripley from Alien 3.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you are a fan of all the different subtypes of horror and you like board games, yeah, right now the base pledge to get on board, because the early bird $85 versions are gone, but $90. But what you're getting for that $90 is ridiculous. I mean,
yeah, and that is a normal price for a game this size.
Yeah.
You look at the cool minis, the Zombicide games. Most of those are $90, $100, where you get lots of cool minis and you get the tiles. It's very typical for this type of game now. Is you're going to be spending $90, $100, and I mean, 10 years ago, people would have been like, "Oh my God, $100 for a board game!" But it's, now 50 and 60 is the norm, where 90 is really not outside the realm of what you pay for a good game.
And if you are a backer, you're going to be waiting a year. It's not going to deliver until August of 2016, so you're going to sit for a little bit, but it will ship anywhere in the world. That's just mind-numbingly detailed, and thinking about it, $235,000 that they've reached for a game that's $85 to $90 a shot. I mean, that's fantastic. Your initial thought is, boy, that's just too much for a game, but there are hundreds of people literally who are definitely not worried about the price tag on that. And quite honestly, with all the images that they have for the prototypes, for the different miniatures and the gameplay that they show you and stuff like that, it's amazing. All right, well, we're done talking about the Lobotomy board game. Now we're going to talk about another horror genre game, and this is an RPG called Infected Zombie RPG from Immersion Studios. They set their bar at a lower level. Their pledge level that they want to hit is $8,848. That's their goal. And right now they're at $7,188. And there's 26 days left to go. So they're definitely going to hit it. This is kind of an interesting concept, though. It's what happens to the world after a zombie virus outbreak happens. So the war is over, and there might be some zombies here and there that you might run into, and you kind of have to worry about possible re-outbreaks from them. But you're left with a choice. Do you tear down what's left of society and humanity after fighting this horrible war, or do you actively work to rebuild the world and make it better and bring it back to where it once was? Are you the anarchist, or are you the person that wants to go back to having the normal life you once had before? Which is, I think, kind of an interesting take on that concept. Um, the base level, excuse me, to get on board is $25, and that gets you the RPG PDF and access to all the add-ons and backer-only updates, and your name in the back of the book as a backer. And since it's a PDF, I mean, that's a quick pop them in there. That's really kind of cool. The higher up you go, one of the top levels that they have.
Brad, I think these are. I think this is Canadian dollars. Because if you look underneath, it shows what the U.S. dollar amount is.
Oh, yeah. If you mouse over the dollar icon off to the side, okay. So they're looking for converted from.
It's Australian dollars.
Australian dollars. That's what it is. So about $18 U.S. is what you need to get in.
Okay, gotcha.
PDF.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, there. If I looked at the gray printing underneath it instead of okay, you caught me. So it's even cheaper than what we said. So $18 gets you on the base. $48 gets you the soldier level, which gets you a PDF and a hard copy of the book, and access to all the add-ons, the updates. The estimated delivery for that is February of 2016. Actually, for all of this stuff here is February 2016, it looks like. God, the cover for this is just fantastic. It kind of reminds me of the old Mayfair chill, kind of that feel.
I was just thinking that. It's a nice, simple, kind of sexy cover.
Yeah. I've got this up on the YouTube video version of this, and it's very simplistic, but it conveys definitely. When you look at this cover, you know what you're getting into. It is definitely horror genre. It is definitely gonna be a heavy topic, and when you're talking basically post World War against the undead, I mean that's a really heavy form of urban fantasy. Flipping through this Kickstarter page, and we'll have the link in the show notes to this particular Kickstarter project here, you can see some of the character sheets, some of the rule summary sheets, and some of the art that they have in the book. And it is absolutely gorgeous. And then they have some videos on gameplay, which I think is really important to games that especially aren't established and are just coming out, to kind of give people a good sense of what type of dice are used and how typical gameplay would run, just to make sure that that's something that if you're going to put your money down, that's going to be a game that you're going to play later on and not feel like you wasted your money because it's not the type of mechanic that you're happy with or you enjoy. So very, very interesting. We had a discussion early on, Matthew, in some of our earlier episodes where we talked about Kickstarter maybe helping to create like a new renaissance of gaming. And I wanted to kind of get your perspective on that. Do you feel that that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. Kickstarter it's been not just in gaming either. I mean, it's let people who don't have the resources of a larger publishing company to kind of create their game and realize their dream and get it out there. And Kickstarter combined with print-on-demand services like Drive-Thru RPG have kind of cemented that. Now that's both good and bad. I mean, without meaning to be mean about it, not every dream needs to be realized. But one of the other nice things about Kickstarter though is that it can give you a sense of, or a gauge of, whether or not you should continue with a given project, or whether the world just isn't ready for it.
Okay.
Or whether you've thought it through enough. We've run 4 Kickstarters. 3 of them were successful. 1 of them wasn't, and the one that wasn't, we kind of went, well, some of that was the way that it was presented. Some of it was because our ask was too high. And we kind of took it back to drawing board and shelved it basically. We're like, well, we'll get to this when we figure out a way to make it work. But
okay.
But But yeah, there are definitely a lot of games, some of which are on my bookshelf right now, that would not really have been possible pre-Kickstarter, unless the creators were able to get somebody with an existing infrastructure interested. And if you're publishing through someone else, then hopefully they're going to let you realize your game the way that you want to. But I mean, the producer always seems to want to have some creative input too.
Sure.
That's not always what you want as a creator.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to be your own boss. There are pitfalls with that too.
Yeah, I could see, especially with perhaps distribution or just general communication. If you don't have a good concept of what that infrastructure should look like and should be like, and if you have the right people kind of manning those posts.
Yeah. It kind of depends on what you want to do. I mean, if all you want to do is make your game, sell the PDF, sell it print on demand, you can do that. You don't have to muck about with distribution, or if you want to, a lot of times you can go through like Indie Press Revolution, and then they'll take your stuff to cons, or they'll distribute it for you. You're never going to make bank, but if you wanted to make bank, you shouldn't be in RPGs anyway, really. Let's be honest.
Fair enough.
What's the best way to make $1 million in the RPGs? Start with 2 million.
Yeah, I can see that, and for so much joy that RPGs bring. I mean, you get the right combination of a good system and a good storyteller, and it's magical. And
yep. And really, I mean, if you think about what it would cost to take 5 people to the movies once a week for a year versus what it would cost to run an RPG for 5 people once a week for a year, economically, it's a clear indication you go with the RPG. But so it's even if you're buying something with a more expensive book or set of books, it's still really a cost-effective hobby, if you will.
Sure.
If you can resist buying dice every chance you get. which some of my players have trouble with, but
yeah, I've been fortunate that I've only bought 4 sets, and I think that's only been 4 because the particular container that I have them in can only really hold 4. It's a weird addiction that I have a friend. He was Rob Benton, who was on our second episode. He's got a huge wooden box. It's a treasure chest, I'm not going to lie. And it's probably about, I want to say it's about 10 inches tall, but it's like, it's a deep and wide chest. And what he would do is he would have friends go to Gen Con and go to the ChessX table and get the coffee cup full of dice.
Yeah. I just did that for one of my players this year, actually.
And it's a grab bag of what you get. I mean, it could be you could get a whole bunch of D6s with pips on them. It could be it's just a random grab bag, or you could get dice that when you roll them, it'll tell you what day of the week it might be. If you're trying to do a random, somebody asks you, oh, what day is it? And you just grab this specialized die to roll it and tell your players what day of the week it is. It's just a random weird grab bag. So he's got this treasure chest full of random dice of all sorts, and he's broken the addiction slightly. He hasn't really added to the treasure chest in a while, but for a while there, we wanted to intervene and say, just no, you have way too many dice, and that's not an uncommon thing for players.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just buying the RPGs. I came to terms a few years ago with the fact that I'm a collector. I'm always going to be a collector, so I have bookshelves full of RPGs that I'm probably never going to play, but I do attempt to at least read.
Yeah, I have a friend who's the same way. He loves RPGs. He loves looking at the process of what the creator has put together, and then the mechanic, and then kind of figuring out how the mechanic works, and just getting that feel of a game. But he doesn't have the time to run them, so it's always kind of a, well, you know, if I get time sort of a thing. And he's literally, for those of you who are watching the YouTube version of this, when Matthew speaks, you can see behind him he's got these very nice looking shelves behind him, and he has graciously moved out of the way, and they are filled with a multitude of multicolored books, and that's gorgeous. Looks like he's got
that one's mostly World of Darkness.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looked like that.
And then this one, I think the top is Savage Worlds, and then kind of we get into 3 shelves down or so we get into Fate, and then the bottom 2 are like Shadowrun, because of course my wife, Michelle Lyons McFarland, worked for FASA, and she was a longtime Shadowrun contributor. So we have lots of her Shadowrun books, and then some from her time which is at the Coast, and then there's another shelf that's across the room that I'm not gonna try to turn the computer around and show you because my table's a mess. But that's kind of where a lot of my more indie RPGs are. So a lot from like Third Eye Games and Wicked Fate, and a lot of like kind of, I don't want to say standalone, but the folks that have kind of done one book thus far.
Okay.
So a lot of the stuff I get from Kickstarter actually is on that shelf.
Okay, sure. And I know for those of you that watch the video religiously, you see behind Glenn his collection of some of his.
Small.
It's small, but I think
compared to what it used to be.
Well, yeah, that's true. Because you had a very sizable collection, and then you had some movies that you wanted to make, and some short films, and you sold some of that to finance that, didn't you?
Not the RPG stuff. Most of that went to finance the divorce.
And there it is. All right.
So yeah.
Man, I feel like I should call my ex and tell her again how much I like her.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that anybody that's a huge passionate fan of RPGs and whatnot, I mean, unfortunately, the Nerdatorium studio here is not fully organized yet. I still have to put shelves into the whole board gaming section of this thing, but yeah, there are bookshelves of RPGs. A lot of it is White Wolf, because that's really where I cut my teeth, and I spent a lot of money I didn't really have in the 90s to buy White Wolf material. But yeah, there's other stuff in there as well, and I'm such a huge comic book nerd. Of course, there's a huge collection of trade paperbacks as well. But I think anybody who's really passionate about games and gaming and whatnot, they too have their own shelf of all the materials that they've collected too of the games that they love or are interested in playing. So, all right, well, back to this. It looks like this is really kind of a cool setting, and people should really check out Infected Zombie RPG. Like I said, it's and I was corrected. It's $18 U.S. cash to get on board at the Survivor level, which gets you the PDF of the game. So it'll be on your computer, and you can do the thing I did with the Onyx Path Hunters Hunted 2. I got the PDF, and then I took it to a print place and had it printed and put in a plastic ring binder thing, so that I could have a physical copy, because I don't know if it's an age thing. I think we had this discussion before. I need to hold a thing. Having a PDF is okay, but I need to quick reference. You can't flip through a PDF, really.
No, but you also can't control F a book. So
fair enough.
There is that.
There is that too.
Indexes in RPG books tend to be somewhat hit or miss. So
yeah, that's the thing I always worry.
I do like being able to take 200 RPG books to Gen Con with me.
Yes.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean,
what do you want to play? You want to play Deadlands? Yeah, I have Deadlands.
I have all the Deadlands.
All right. Well, we're going to move on then, and we're now going to speak solely with Matthew McFarland and find out what it takes to take a game that has been around for a while. I mean, it existed in by two different companies before, and after Mayfair tabled and closed off Chill, which was really sad, you took it upon yourself, you and your wife together, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And the two of you went about the process of getting the licensing for the game because it still existed out there, and somebody else possessed it. And you took it upon yourselves to not only choose this particular game for the reasons that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, but go through the process of not only licensing, but then retooling it and bringing it up to date, because it hadn't been... When did Mayfair table it? 97? The mid...
I was going to say Mayfair was still making books for Chill as late as, I want to say, 96 or so. And don't quote me on that. Well, of course, I just said it, so I guess you do quote me. But I want to say Beast Within and Unknown Providence were two of the later ones, and I think they were like 95, 96 thereabouts.
Okay, so it hadn't been in circulation and printing out new materials since the late 90s.
Yeah.
And in 20... When did you get the idea to do this? 2010, 2012?
No, it was later than that. 2014, I guess.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It came together pretty quickly once we kind of got it done. Well, so Chill was my first horror game.
Okay.
Like I said, I started playing RPGs with Marvel's TSR games. Yeah, the Phaser Rip game was my first RPG, and then so I ran that for a couple of years my last couple of years in high school, and then I went to college, and I thought I kind of like to do something different, but I don't know, like I don't want to play D&D because I wasn't really into fantasy. So I'm like, I don't know what else is out there, and I went to my friendly local gaming store, which at the time was Mind Games in Toledo, Ohio. Okay. And I found this real sexy black book called Chill, and I picked it up and read it, and I liked horror well enough, but I wasn't really hugely into it. But Chill had this amazing filmography section, bibliography of horror movies and horror literature, and so over the next few years, I really immersed myself in that genre, and I probably ran Chill 3 times a week, 4 times a week for a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
That's why my undergraduate GPA is not better than it is. And so it really was not only one of my favorite games, but really a very formative game for me as a game master, as a gamer, and as a writer. The game that I picked up after Chill that really stuck was Wraith the Oblivion.
Oh, okay, sure.
Summer of 1994, and so about then is when I kind of stopped playing Chill and I started running World of Darkness, and that, I mean, absolutely influenced my aesthetic as a writer and as a game master. And so now fast forward 20 years, and I just kind of idly remarked to Michelle, like, I wonder who has the rights to Chill these days. There was supposed to be a 3rd edition a couple of years ago, but that fell through. And I don't know, did they revert back to Mayfair? Did somebody else pick them up? I don't know. And Michelle, being a wizard, spent a little while on the internet and tracked down Martin Caron, who had purchased the rights from Mayfair Games, and he was a fan. I don't know that he had any specific plans when he got the rights. I think that he wanted to do something with it, and maybe wasn't sure quite what. So we contacted him and said, "Hey, as it turns out, we have a publishing company and we publish role-playing games. Do you want to do something with Chill?" And we, eventually worked out an agreement with him that we would make a 3rd edition of Chill, which, I mean, really was a dream project for me. Okay. So, yeah.
I could see there being just a huge appeal to taking a game that you loved so much and played for so long, and to be able to reintroduce it to a new crop of gamers.
Yeah. Well, and also to give it back to people who like me,
Sure.
played and loved one of the earlier editions. we had the books at Gen Con, and we were, handing them out to the Kickstarter backers, and I had several of the backers kind of come and find me and, say, I haven't played this game in, 15 years, 20 years, but, thank you for bringing this back and for doing something new with it. So that was a very kind of heartwarming sort of feeling.
One of the things that I really enjoy about Chill, and I mentioned Hunters Hunted from White Wolf, but we'll focus on Chill here, but that whole concept of you're a human and you may or may not have special abilities that are beyond human but not superhuman, or because there is a definite distinction in Chill, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So characters in Chill might have what are called disciplines of the art, but they're not as impressive as the powers that the creatures of the unknown get to wield. I mean, somebody who's very skilled at the art might be able to seal a room so creatures of the unknown can't get in. They might be able to heal other characters' injuries. They might even be able to kind of use some low-grade telekinesis. But a creature of the unknown can kill you by gesturing at you, can send you, control your dreams, can, shut your car off from a distance, that kind of thing. And one of the kind of big truths about Chill is the characters are human. They're just people. They're people who ran across the unknown and were threatened by it or saw other people hurt by it, and rather than kind of ignoring that and going back to their lives and pretending not to know, they said, no, that's not good enough. People are getting hurt. I need to do something about it. Yeah. And so I like those kinds of people, like I those are people that I emulate. I want to have that kind of courage, and probably I will never have to, stand up to a vampire or anything. But that there is an appeal to playing a character who is by nature heroic. And especially after as much work as I've done with the World of Darkness, where the characters are not intrinsically heroic. They're, a lot of them are monsters, and even the ones that do good things, it's not a given assumption, no matter what game you're playing, even if you're playing Hunter or Hunters Hunted. The motives of the characters are not necessarily pure. And in Chill, we talk a little bit about drive, for each character, like what is it that pushes you to fight the unknown, and that doesn't necessarily have to be well, I want to protect humanity, but that's a pretty good one.
Sure. And one of the nice things about, like I said, I backed it and I got the PDF, and reading that glowing forward was which is really heartwarming and really kind of delves, at least on the surface, a little bit of the history of Chill as a game through its different incarnations, its different editions. But then when you get just beyond that, you get into a short comic, essentially, that shows you the journey, or at least, no, not the journey, that it's shorter than that, but it gives you an introduction to somebody who is a part of one of the SAVE organizations.
Yes.
And how he got involved, and the particular art that he has, and then them hunting a monster, him hunting a monster with another group of the local SAVE organization that he is now a part of. He's sort of a legacy. His father was in SAVE, and as I recall, he gets involved with SAVE because he wants to make his father proud, and because he discovered written documents and things about his father's time in SAVE and what the work that he had done to help protect people from monsters. And so he's kind of driven by that desire to do the same and make his dad proud. But the story of, because there are flashbacks in this, and you get to see how his father shows him like his art, and that is to put up basically like a force field, a protection screen around himself, and him trying to work with his son with his particular gift. And it really kind of struck me for a brief moment that he was kind of like a sport dad. You know, I mean, yes, he used a baseball to throw it at his son to try to get him to, you know, try to put up to think fast and protect himself. But it really kind of felt like for that brief moment, it's like, yeah, this is how your old man does it. Now it's your turn, think fast. And he just, there goes the baseball, and it hits him in the face.
Yeah.
But then you get to see from that point him working, because teamwork has got to be essential if you are just a human. And even though you might have, and you said before, that the particular arts that your characters might have are low level.
Yeah.
So teamwork is critical to survival.
I've been running chill at cons, through Origins and Gen Con and so forth this year, and then I've run it, of course, at my own table. And one of the things that we really wanted to stress when we started putting together this edition was a lone save envoy is probably going to die. A group of save envoys can win, but you have to know what you're doing when you go into the situation. You can't, just go in guns blazing, because a lot of the times the things you're fighting aren't really going to care about guns. So your research, you need to, figure out how to fight, and then you have to be able to fight. And so when we kind of redesigned the system, we kept the core of it. It's a percentile system. You want to roll low,
Yep.
But Chill Second Edition had a lot of skills, and they really focused more on, like, you need a separate skill for rifle, shotgun, pistol, and so forth. It was very granular. And then you had skills like the Chill Companion introduced, like, here's a skill for semaphore, and here's a skill for farming, and and I'm like, I don't really think that we need these. And so what we did for third edition was there are 9 skills in the game. That's it. And all of the skills in the game focus on investigating the unknown or fighting the unknown. There are skills that you'll use to do one of those two things. And then if you have other things that your character knows how to do, there's an edge that you can take called background. So if I want to play a character who's like a master chef, okay, I don't need to burn my points on taking cooking as a skill. I will take background master chef, and then if at any point during the game the fact that I'm a master chef applies, if I want to, if perhaps cooking a particular meal is the key to defeating a creature of the unknown, I don't know, could happen, stranger things.
You never know.
Then I get a bonus, to any role that that might involve. But that to me was a good way to sort of stress, like, this is what this game is about. This is what we expect you to be doing when you're playing Chill, and we want the mechanics to back that up.
Yeah, and it really, based on your description and your thought process, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Fate, and taking it away from rolling dice and getting it back to the narrative portion and keeping kind of the game flowing, because it's one of those things where, okay, now you got to roll, and now you got to roll, and now let's roll for this. It really can break the flow.
Sure. One thing that I tell people about running games in general is never ask for a roll that you're not prepared for the player to fail. Never ask for a roll that you're not prepared for the player to succeed. And it doesn't matter how likely it is that the roll will succeed or fail, because we've all seen that one player who, they're playing a World of Darkness game and they've got 18 dice, and oh, look at that, they rolled all 2s, or the other side of it, well, I've only got 2 dice, and oh, look at that, I rolled 10s, and I can keep re-rolling them forever.
Yeah.
So, I've seen both of those eventualities often enough to know that I only want to bring chance into it when I'm prepared for the results. And I think that, not just in Chill, but in any RPG, if you're designing the mechanics around what should be rolled, if that makes any sense.
Sure, yeah.
Like, these are the things that I want to leave to chance. Now, in Chill, if you're making what are called information checks, that is something that will give you clues as to what's going on, kind of that part of the case, even if you fail, you still get clues.
Okay,
This is kind of the same philosophy that Gumshoe uses. An investigative game doesn't progress unless the characters get information. Now, if you roll better, you get more information. If you roll really crappily, you might get false information. But you will always get what are called the vital clues for that scene.
Sure.
And that that piece of the case.
Yeah, and again, that's keeping the game moving forward, but also. Yep. I've played in a game where if you didn't hit the roll, you didn't get the information.
Yeah. And
you rolled and you rolled and you rolled, and if you didn't have the right skill or you didn't have the right, if you weren't lucky enough, that portion just dragged on. And it felt so, defeating. It didn't feel like you were... The roll didn't feel like it was really...
and especially if you're just allowed to keep rolling. And at that point, I'm like, inevitable discovery. What the hell am I having you roll these dice for? You're going to figure it out because there's no reason that you have to stop. Yeah. So, why invoke the dice at all? Yeah. There's a gaming philosophy called fail forward, which is basically that even a failed roll should push the game forward somehow.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to go by. Just as a game master or as a game designer, a failed roll. I think that at least you need to sort of think twice before establishing that a failed roll does nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because nothing doesn't really. As Shakespeare says, nothing will come from nothing.
Well, it's an absolute truth. Absolutely.
Well, it's actually, it plays along a life discussion I had many years ago with some friends of mine. In the whole, they're constantly rolling and rolling and rolling, and then the DM or game master at the time said, "Well, you guys can just puzzle through it, and says, the die roll is just there for when you can't figure things out." I'm like, but I'm not my character though. Right. I'm not, like in the example of Chill, I'm not actually a member of Save.
Yes.
I don't actually know all this occult lore stuff, and I don't actually know how to fire a machine gun. Mm-hmm. So there are things that my player knows that I, as a character, don't really know, or as a player, I don't know, these things. I can't actually cast a magic missile. So, and
try harder. I'm sure.
Yeah, I could. When I run games, I try to minimize die rolling as much as possible. If there's things that the players, if it's something that is so basically simple that unless the character is completely, tied up in a sack at the bottom of a river, they can accomplish it. I'm not going to have them roll a die,
Right. Yeah.
Roll a die to cast a light spell. No. Right. You know what? You're not in combat. You're standing in a room by yourself. Cast a light spell. I don't care. Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah.
There are a few games that Unknown Armies works like this actually. That your totals that you're rolling against are kind of low, but that's because they're meant to be used in stressful situations. So I don't necessarily have a 30% chance of doing X or Y at all times. It's just that when it matters and I'm rolling, that's what I'm likely to do. Okay. So yeah, that's.
Well, I have to say I do hold there's always a bit of sourness with Chill for me.
Aw.
It's not. I love the game. I used to play it all the time in college. The sourness comes from the fact that, and I'll see if either of you pick up on it, is the fact that if we had taken our ideas and gone further with them, because our campaign we had 2 regular players, and we played brothers who travel around the U.S. playing nonsense.
You were ahead of your time, is that what you're
And then Supernatural came out, and I was like 2 episodes in, I'm like,
damn it!
My Chill game. This is the Chill game I played in. The only thing that's missing is we had my friend's girlfriend that played occasionally.
Yeah.
And she would just tag along every now and then as a third member of our family, who was never always with us. But I'm just like, man.
You were Supernatural before it was cool.
You were Supernatural before Supernatural was cool. That's funny. Although we didn't cause an apocalypse every 5 episodes.
Well, you can only cry wolf so many times. My biggest question to you, Matthew, is when you have the opportunity to bring something back to life that you have a great deal of admiration for, a great deal of good memories, there had to be probably some pressure to make sure that you did it right, and when you looked over the project as a whole and you went, yeah, okay, I hit it. This feels right, and I think that other people are going to appreciate it. What are some of those things that when you looked at it and you either updated or streamlined that you're particularly proud of in Chill?
So we talked about the skills. That's definitely one thing. It was funny when we started working on the new edition, and I say we, and one of my biggest helps on the book was my brother Jonathan, who back in the day was one of my Chill players.
Sure.
And so he was also very familiar with the game, and so we sat down, and the first thing that we did, of course, was we reread second edition, and I thought to myself, wow, there are so many subsystems that I never used. It was a very 90s game design. There was kind of like, here's the NPC reaction chart table thing, and like that kind of thing. That there were a lot of kind of little subsystems to roll on that it didn't really need, but were very kind of stylish, if you will, at the time. And so game design has changed a bit, and I wanted to make Chill kind of more in line with what game design is doing now. And I wanted to kind of put my stamp on it, but keep it feeling like the game that I knew and loved. Now that's not entirely an easy feat, because I'm like, okay, I want this to feel like a 90s game, but to not actually have all the baggage of a 90s game. And I think we actually did that, because as I'm running the game, it feels like Chill to me, but at the same time, I'm not looking at a chart to figure out how successes work. So we streamlined kind of the math of the game. It used to be that you'd roll and you wanted to get under your target number, but how much under your target number you got determined what kind of success you got. And my brother could do it in his head. I never could. This is math, and math is kind of my nemesis. Yeah. So one of my design goals was, I want to have multiple success levels, but I want to be able to figure it out without a chart. So the most math you ever have to do is divide a number in half. Even I can do that. And then, but the thing that we added to the game that I think is the most interesting, that I'm most proud of, is the token system. So basically, the way that it works is you start off the game, and there are a number of tokens on the board that are either light or dark. And I'm going to hold one up to you here so you can see this. Woo, dice everywhere. Here we go. So that's light. That's the Indalo. That's the light side. And then that's the dark side.
Oh, nice.
Right? And it's funny, actually, when we got these poker chips in, my son's 7 years old, he picks one of them up, he says, "Daddy, I like the symbol, but I don't like the crazy gorilla." So these things are now called crazy gorillas.
That's great.
On my table, anyway. So, but anyway, so there are light and dark tokens on the board, and then during the course of the game, they turn. You start off with more light than dark, but the players will use the flip the light tokens to dark to add to their rolls, or to activate Disciplines of the Art, or to get extra clues in an information check. And then the Chill Master can flip the dark chips to light to activate creatures of the unknowns, their disciplines, or to add to antagonist NPCs rolls, or just to make life difficult for the players. One of my favorite things to do with dark chips is, the characters will be real sneaky and try to, creep through the haunted house, and then I'll turn a token and say, your cell phone.
I saw that. And that's a great.
It's in genre. And if the player tells me ahead of time, like, I'm going to make sure that my cell phone's turned off, well, okay, then I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to be a dick. So, but the tokens, what we found in play is that the tokens kind of represent this flow of the stories, because at the beginning, the advantage is kind of with the characters. They're doing their investigation. They're getting all these clues and kind of putting things together. And by the time they find the creatures, now I've got this whole slate of dark chips that I can use against them. And then as I'm using them against them, they get more light chips, which then they could use to fight. So this is kind of cool, like back and forth that goes on.
Yeah, I saw that as a mechanic, and I went, what are... I was looking at, especially at the beginning, where it's like, okay, you need a pair of D10s, and you need either playing cards to signify the tokens, or you recommend a poker chip where you just take one, like a Sharpie, and darken the other side of the poker chip and use that to flip it back and forth. And when I saw how that they're used, I'm like, oh god, that's brilliant, because it's a level of... because it's something that the entire team draws from.
Yes.
So you really have to, as a team, go, okay, we kind of need this role, but maybe we can limp along without it. And it's a team decision, because when the chips are down, you guys need to be able to, when things are going really bad, you need to have these light side tokens to be able to do what you need to do to live.
Yep.
If things go really bad. So that level of back and forth is truly inspired and brilliant. Congratulations on that. That's beautiful. Absolutely.
It's a little reminiscent of, I think it was in Torg, where you had something where players had these, I forget what they were like these advantage cards, and you could use them to give yourself a boost, but as soon as you used them, that unlocked the game master to use bad ones against you.
Oh, okay.
So, and I hadn't seen anything even close to that in a long time, and yeah, that actually worked kind of nifty to help the story along times. I really need this boost, and you do it, and then an hour later you're trying to do something simple, and all of a sudden something bad happens. I knew it was coming, because you live under that shadow of it. It's like he's going to hit me with something soon.
Well, the other thing that you do with the tokens too is that whenever in the story the unknown kind of becomes aware of the envoys and knows that it's there and is ready for you, the Chillmaster adds a light token.
Okay.
And so I always make sure to, when I'm running games at cons or whatever, I always make sure to explain that to the players, so that during the game when I, take a light token and add it to the like, oh shit.
Yep.
Here we go. Yep. So.
Which can add to the sense of drama and add to that level of horror and anxiety in the game, which I think is also a great side bonus to that mechanic.
Yes. Well, trying to make a role-playing game, trying to have a horror role-playing game actually inspire tension is hard to do. Yeah. Because unless you're really invested in your character, or unless you're really immersed in the game, which is as much a function of the player as anything else, because some people just don't get into it, or don't get into it to the degree that they're going to feel tense. It's hard to conjure that. Now, one way you can do that is by doing atmospheric things. You play music, you screw with the lighting, that kind of thing. But it's hard to do. It's hard to arrange that sometimes. And the token mechanic. So now there's a real, tangible, visible representation of kind of where we are in the story and what the characters have to draw on, or what I have to draw on, and running the game. And so that was definitely something deliberate. Like how do we because you can't scare players really, but what you can do is up the tension.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely wonderful. Why
I only play horror role-playing games on Halloween only, in a graveyard on top of a grave of someone who committed suicide. It's the only way to actually play it properly.
So the other horror game, of course, that really ups the tension to ridiculous levels just by nature of the game is Dread.
Yes.
Dread. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's the game that uses a Jenga tower as the task resolution.
Oh boy!
And if you knock the tower over, your character is out, dead, catatonic, arrested, out of the game. But here's the thing: you never have to pull. If you don't pull, you fail at whatever you were doing, but you're not, and you could potentially be injured, but you're not out. And so I always joke that you can tell at Gen Con or at Origins who's playing Dread, because there's a Jenga tower on the edge of a table, and everybody's 10 feet away from the table, and if you walk within 10 feet of the table, they fucking tackle you. Do not do it. Get away. So, but everybody's up and pacing because they're too keyed up to sit down. It's really awesome. So
actually, I got to play it for the first time this year at Gen Con. And that was, that definitely has some tension.
Such an awesome game. Yeah.
And a lot of that too is the storyteller. I know that who was it? Pat Rothfuss actually ran a game for some folks, and it was the Trauma system.
Yeah.
And he was pressured into running a game, and he's like, okay, we're doing this in Trauma, and he starts to tell the story of this white van that's seen going around from area to area, and he felt put upon to do this thing, to create this story, and he just focused all that passion and that kind of frustration and made something that actually kind of scared everybody that played that game for years to come. So whenever they saw a white van, they'd be like, oh, it was just like a conditioned response. And that's, to this day, that they still talk about it. And that's, again, it's not so much having the setting and the book and everything. It has to be something that's inside of you that you want to convey that feeling, and you have to do the work to draw the players in and to be invested, and and the tokens, I think, really help physically manifest and kind of reinforce the fact that there are stakes to what you're doing. And it's just such a brilliant mechanic. I absolutely love it. All right. Well, I think that those are all the questions that we really had about Chill. We're going to wrap things up here, and then we're going to find out more information on where people can find out more about Growling Door Games and Chill, and some of the other projects that you do, Matthew.
Yes, indeed.
Hello, my name is. That's the opportunity that you have to tell us about your character that you are currently or have played in the past. Whether that's a horror genre character that you played, or fantasy, or sci-fi, whatever. You can go to galacticnetcasts.com, and you can click to the Adventure Party page and find the Hello, my name is icon. You can click that and fill out a short form and tell us about yourself and your character. Yes, we do ask for your email address. The only reason why we ask for it is so that we can send you a certificate as a thank you for participating, and let us know about you and the character that you played in the past, and give us the opportunity to talk about why you think that character was so cool to play. Also, you can find the Adventure Party, like I said before, at galacticnetcasts.com, and you can find all of our social media outlets. You can find us on YouTube, and we're on iTunes and Stitcher for the audio portions of the show. We try to have this available not just in video format, but for you to be able to listen to on your desktop or your iPod or whatever type of device that you use to listen to podcasts. If you do use iTunes and Stitcher, we ask that you take a moment to give us a review and let us know what you think. Your review, positive or negative, can help shape the Adventure Party into being a better show, and let us know maybe what we need to focus on more, maybe what we need to focus on a little bit less. We'd really appreciate that feedback. You can also contact us by emailing galacticnetcasts@gmail.com, or you can call or text the number 805-328-3966 and leave a message. Like I said, whether that's a voice or text message, that's up to you. If you do text, depending on your particular calling plan, there might be a charge involved. One other thing that we've added is we use WordPress for the galacticnetcasts.com page, and we have a plugin that allows you to, if you have a microphone attached to your computer, you click the icon on the left-hand side. We've moved the button. It's on the left-hand side of the screen, and if you click that, it will allow you to directly record a message that is emailed to us, and give us feedback that way if that's a little bit better for you. Thanks again, Matthew, for talking to us about Chill and what it took to bring a classic horror game that gave so much to so many and bring it back to everybody to be able to experience again in a more streamlined format than it was before. Where can people find out more about you and Growling Door Games?
They can go to growlingdoorgames.com, actually. And there are, that's simple, there are pages and links for our other games, for Curse the Darkness, which is our post-apocalyptic role-playing game about death and memory and identity and hard choices, and A Tragedy in 5 Acts, which is our one-evening Shakespearean tragedy emulator, and Chill.
Excellent. And there's also links to the store to acquire those games too, correct?
Yes, that's correct. There's a buy link on the site that'll take you to our Drive-Thru RPG page. At the moment, Chill is only available for purchase in PDF. We're going to have buttons on the site that will let people order the hardcover and the box set, which includes a lovely little bag like this that includes 10 chips and 2 dice. But I'm still trying to figure out how to set up the PayPal buttons and make shipping work. So
sure.
I also need to make sure that all of the Kickstarter backers have their products shipped out to them, and we kind of ran into a hiccup with that with some of the international shipping last week. So I need to get that squared away. Yeah, it'll be fine. It's just we basically there was a computer crash that kind of slowed things down. So
gotcha.
But it's handled and it's underway.
Excellent. And see, once that's available on Drive-Thru RPG, I will be getting the box set because I want those tokens.
So the box set and the hardcover will be available off our website.
Okay.
It will eventually be available print on demand on Drive-Thru RPG.
Okay.
But again, I need to. There's a couple other things I need to get set up first. But
yep.
that's coming. So if you keep an eye on growlingdoorgames.com or follow us on Twitter at growlingdoor, then we will definitely make the announcements when those things are ready to go.
Okay, wonderful. And Glenn, thanks again for joining us on this wonderful adventure that we call a podcast. Where can people find out more about you and what you do?
You can find me on Facebook with Naked Hobo Productions, or the B-Movie Bunker, or Mr. Early RPG, or Apocalypse How the Card Game, or on YouTube, B-Movie Bunker, Naked Hobo Productions, or the easiest way is to follow me on Twitter at Naked Hobo.
And just so everybody's aware, it's Naked Hobo Productions.
So when you see the Naked Hobo Productions followed at Growling Door Games, you won't think it's some porn site.
Thank you.
It's that nice little heads up. And Glenn has done 3 different short horror movie short films, which are there's Hell, Handy, and what's the third one?
Prey.
Prey. That's right.
So,
you can find those on the
on
Naked
my
Hobo
YouTube
Productions channel.
Naked Hobo Productions. Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us at the Adventure Party. May your characters never die and your adventures always be epic. Thank you and good night.